Hello everyone, this video is going to be about operators, so this is going to be a nice follow-up to the if statements that we talked about in the last video. Now there's operators. You actually already know what most of these are, or many of them at least. There's a few different categories of operators, and we're going to start with the arithmetic operators. And I want to point out that we've already used two operators that I can think of in the videos before. We used the assignment operator, and that's just the single equal sign, and we use that to assign a value to a variable. And then the other operator that we used when we talked about if statements is the equality operator, and that's two equal signs. So we got to make sure to remember to use two equal signs when we're comparing two values to see if they're equal or not. So alright, let's just quickly start with the arithmetic operators, and like I said, most of these you're already familiar with. First we have the plus sign, and you know what that does, that adds two numbers. Then we have the minus sign, and you know that that subtracts two numbers. And then you probably know that we use the asterisk to do multiplication. And then we use the / to do division. So these they're called operators because they operate on the values that are around them. So 8 divided by 4, if we're using the divided by operator or the division operator, it operates on the number on the left and the number on the right. So 8 divided by 4 would evaluate to 2. Now the one arithmetic operator that you may not be familiar with is the modulus operator, and that's the percent sign. So let's take a look at the modulus operator. So I'm going to scroll down the page here to our code blocks, and the modulus operator is used to determine the remainder of dividing two numbers. So here I'll go ahead and copy this code here, and we'll go over to Sublime Text. Oh, by the way, you should have this file open in the browser and in Sublime Text as usual. So if you don't have them ready to go, go ahead and pause this video and get that set up. So here I'll go over to Sublime Text, and I can't remember exactly where I put my script tag for us to play around with. It's down the page here somewhere. Right here on line 267. So I'll go ahead and I'll paste my code in. I'll do a little bit of formatting. Make sure you format your code. I'll be on your case about that all semester. And a lot of times students don't realize the value of formatting until they get further into programming, because I've had students come to me and say, gosh, thanks for getting on my case about all the formatting. Okay, so what we've got here is a variable that I've named sum remainder, and then we're setting it equal to this 7 mod 2. So like I said, this is the modulus operator, and we just say mod. So we could say 7 mod 2 here, and that would give us the remainder of dividing 7 by 2, which is going to be 1. So if you want, you can let's go ahead and run that. So I'll save this here, and then I'll refresh the screen here, and you can see that what we get alerted is 1. So I'll go ahead and close that. Alright. As I said, I think you probably already know all the other arithmetic operators, so I just wanted to go over the modulus one because I figure you already know what the other ones do. But what we also have are what we call shortcut arithmetic operators. I'll scroll back up to our table here. So these are the shortcut arithmetic operators, and they just save us a few keystrokes because they do the same things as the arithmetic operators, but they allow us to do it in a little bit less typing. And these look weird at first, but you'll get used to them because you'll see them all the time. So let's take a look at how these work. I'm going to scroll back down to the second code box, and I'm going to go ahead and copy this, copy everything in there, and bounce back over to our script tag in Sublime Text, and then I'm going to paste the code here and then do some formatting. Okay, so what we have here is we've got a variable called x, and we're initializing it to a value of 3. So right here we've got this shortcut operator for addition. So x plus equals 2 is the same as saying x equals x plus 2. Okay, now I know you're beginners, and I wouldn't even bother to tell you this because it can, you've got enough to keep track of already when you're learning about programming. But you do see these operators so often that I'd be afraid that if you're looking at somebody else's code and I didn't tell you what this meant, you'd be confused by it. But anyway, so x plus equals 2 is the same as x equals x plus 2. So after this line of code here, x would be 5 because it started off as 3 and then we did the plus equals 2, so that would put x at 5. So if I were to put an alert right here at this line here, if I alerted x, then what I would see in the alert box would be 5. Okay, so the other shortcut arithmetic operators work in exactly the same way. So x minus equals 2 is the same as x equals x minus 2. And then x divided by equals 2 is the same as x equals x divided by 2. So basically we use these shortcut operators to reassign values to a variable. So x has a value here, but after this line of code runs, it's going to have a new value. So we've reassigned the value here. And then finally, this last one would be the same as x equals x times 2. Okay. Let's go back to the web page and see what we have next. So this is just a little bit of review here, but you already know that we can use the plus operator not just to do math, but also to join strings together. And we call that concatenating strings or string concatenation. So let me go ahead and copy this chunk of code here and paste it over into our little playground script tag. I'll get rid of everything I had there before, and then I'll do some formatting. So what I've got here is a variable string str1, and I'm setting it to high, and then str2 and setting it to there. So I've got two variables, and then I've got an alert. Now I just want to point out something that might be slightly new here. Is here's our first value, or it's a variable that contains a value, so we're concatenating that to another value. So look at this value right here. This value happens to be a single character, which is a space, and then we're joining to that this value. Well, it's a variable that points to a value. So and the reason why I put this here is that if I didn't, the alert would pop up as hi there, all one word. So I don't have a variable for this space, but I don't need to because I can just stick the value, it's this string value right in there all by itself. It'd be kind of weird if I created a variable just for a space, but I could do it. So anyways, let's see what happens here. We'll save this, go back to the web page, refresh, and you can see hi there. So I'm just going to go ahead and go back to Sublime Text, and I'm going to take out this part of my concatenation. So with that, if you combine your string just like that, I'll save it here, go back to the browser and refresh, and you can see that it's hi there, all one word with no space. So you see that a lot where you stick spaces in when you're concatenating strings. So that'll be a common thing to see. All right, now string concatenation is a huge part of programming, and we can actually use the shortcut. So you'll be doing a lot of string concatenation as you do more programming. A lot of programming is just working with text and strings. So in this example, I just wanted to show you a little bit more complicated piece of string concatenation right here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, paste it over, get rid of what we had here, paste in this stuff. Now I want to format this the way so that it makes sense. We'll just do it like this. Okay, so what we're using here is the shortcut addition operator to concatenate strings, and you can do that too. So this is the same as, so we've got our variable that we called HTML, and we set it to an initial value right here. And then what this line does is says HTML equals HTML plus. whatever this is over here. So this is one way that you'll see how strings are concatenated quite a bit is if they're big long strings and you don't want to fit them all on one line, you can break them up into individual lines like this, and then a lot of times you'll see that we use this shortcut addition operator. Now the other thing too is you'll notice that I've got quite a bit of spaces here after the equal sign. Now I did that on purpose. JavaScript will ignore the spaces and line breaks, but a lot of times we want to put them in there to make our code easier to read. So you can see what I'm doing here is I'm generating a bunch of HTML as I build up this string. And we know how we want to format our HTML so it's easy to read, and I've kind of simulated that with the way I've formatted this piece of string concatenation. I've got my table tag, and then I've indented all the TR tags just to make it easier to read. So I guess the point here is that you can use spaces and even line breaks if you want to make your code easier to read, to format it so that it's easy to read. So that's what's going on here. I just wanted to keep everything lined up nice and neat. So I'll go ahead and save this and go back over to the browser and refresh, and you can see now even though I put all those spaces in there for my formatting, it's all just one continuous string when as far as JavaScript is concerned. So we do that formatting just for ourselves to make the code easier to read. And we can talk about how we can put in return carriages when we talk about strings, so we'll talk about that later. Okay, so the next two operators that we're going to talk about are what we call the increment and decrement operators. Where do I have those in my chart here? Okay, they're in a category all by themselves. So it's a double plus, that's the increment operator, and a double minus. So again, these are shortcut operators because you can achieve the same thing using just the regular arithmetic operators. And again, I don't mean to confuse you by overwhelming you with all these operators that you technically don't need because you can do them the long way, but you will see this so often when you look at other people's code that I have to show you this, otherwise it wouldn't be fair to you. So I apologize that if you feel like you're being overwhelmed here. Anyways, I'll scroll down to the section on the increment and decrement operators, and let's go ahead and copy this chunk of code right here. So copy it and go back over to the browser, and I'm going to get rid of our previous one here, and I'm going to paste it in and then do some formatting. So kind of as I was saying in the previously, that if it's easier for you to read your code by putting line breaks in between some lines of code, that's fine. That's just formatting. But so you can see, like right here, I've got a line break. I don't really need those, but I just put those there to make the code a little bit easier to read. It's up to you. It's your personal preference. So let's take a look at what we've got here. We've got variable x is set to 7. It's initialized to a value of 7, and then here's that double plus sign. So what that does is that will increment x by 1. So after this line of code, we'll see that x is going to be 8, and then this is the decrement operator, the two minus signs, and that will reduce a number by 1. So why do we need operators just to increment a number by 1? That seems kind of weird, or to reduce a number by 1. Well, we do this a lot in programming, and once we get to arrays and loops, we'll see these two operators quite a bit, because it's pretty common to bump up a number just by 1 when you're using loops and arrays. So anyways, let's go ahead and save this. So I did Control S, and now this, I didn't do an alert for these. I did a console.log. So I'm going to hit F12 to open up the developer tools here, and then I will refresh the page, and you can see that, remember, x started out at 7, and then we used the increment operator, and then we did a console.log. So the value of x is 8. And then after that console.log, we used the decrement operator. So we did an x minus minus, and then that bumped it back down to 7. Okay. So going back to the code here, I just want to point out that this is a statement here. So we do put a semicolon at the end. Now, one of the things that's tricky about JavaScript is it won't always cause an error if you forget your to end your statement with a semicolon, but it can. So there are cases when it can cause an error. So that's why I want you to get into the habit of ending your statements with semicolons. And this is a really tricky thing. So I'll call it out when I see it, when I'm grading your assignments and things like that. But there is some lenience with JavaScript. If you forget one here or there, you may not break things. But if your code doesn't work and you're out of ideas on what's going on, then check and see if you're ending your statements with semicolons. Okay. All right, so let's go back to, I'm going to close the browser, and I'm going to close the developer tools here, and we'll talk about the comparison operators. And we've actually already used these now that I think of it. So we use the comparison operators to compare, we use them in Boolean expressions to compare values. Let me scroll up to the top table here and take a look at these. So here there's quite a few, but you're going to find that you already know most of these. There's a few that you don't know. These are all the comparison operators. You know what the less than is and the greater than is, and the less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and we learned what the equality operator is. That's when you're comparing two things to see if they're equal. And then we've got this one, which is the inequality operator, and you can use that to see if two things are not equal. And then I'm going to defer on the strict equality operator for just a minute or two while we look at some of the code samples. So you already know what most of these are. So we'll scroll on down to the comparison operators, and I think we've already seen something like this. So I'm going to copy this code chunk here, this if statement, first code chunk in the comparison operators section. We'll go back over to the browser, or I'm sorry, Sublime Text, and then I'll delete what we had there, paste this in, and do a little bit of reformatting, make it look nice. Remember, the code inside the body of an if statement should be indented. So this alert is indented, and then I've got my the first line of my if statement is directly over the last line of my if statement, which is this closing curly brace. And again, if you want to, you can do your curly braces like this if you prefer that. That's fine with me either way. Okay, so like I said, we use these comparison operators in Boolean expressions. So right here I've got a Boolean expression, x is greater than or equal to 5. Now I actually don't have x declared. I think that was in the previous code sample. So let me just declare x equals, let's just say equals 5 right here. So what do you think is going to happen when I save this and run it? So x is greater than or equal to 5. It's just as expected. Okay, so I don't think that needs too much explanation there. So all right, let's see what we have next. We've already talked about the equality operator, so we don't need to talk about that one, and that I'll just skip this one right here. So if we wanted to see if x was equal to 5, this would be the Boolean expression we would put in our if statement, and we'd be using the equality operator for that. And let's see here. I guess just to be thorough, here's another example that we can go through real quick that demonstrates the equality operator. So this is where we're prompting the user to give us a guess. So I'll go ahead and copy that, take it on over to Sublime Text, delete what we had before, and we'll see what the code is here. Do some formatting. Okay, so we're prompting the user, and we're going to ask them to guess what word I'm thinking of. And whatever they type into the prompt box, that will be the return value of this function right here, and that return value gets assigned to this variable guess. So whatever they type in that box is going to be what guess is storing. So then we're checking to see if what they typed in was the word operators. Now, I don't know if I've mentioned this in these videos, but JavaScript is case sensitive. So if they typed in operators with all caps, this Boolean expression would come out as false. So now that can be a cause of confusion, but just remember that JavaScript is case sensitive. I should have mentioned that earlier, because not only is it case sensitive when you're comparing values like this right here, but the variable names are case sensitive as well, and so are the function names. I probably should have brought that up sooner. Anyways, let's go ahead and save this. So I'll do a Control S and run the code here back over in the browser. So guess what I'm thinking of? Now I'm going to type in operators with a capital O, and we shall see that I won't see the alert. No alert, because like I said, JavaScript is case sensitive. So I'm going to refresh the page and do it one more time, and this time I'm going to type it in exactly as the code specifies, or as that Boolean expression says, and now I'll see the alert. Okay, so if guess is equal to operators, then we show the alert, which is what we just saw. And again, don't forget to put a double equal sign when you're comparing for equality, because a single equal sign here would overwrite whatever the user entered, and it would set guess equal to operators here. So that's a real common mistake that people make. All right, so the other comparison operator, there's two more that we want to cover. The first one is going to be the inequality operator, and there are times when you want to compare two things to see if they're not equal, and in that case you want to use the inequality operator, and the inequality operator is an exclamation point followed by an equal sign. So let's go ahead and take this code sample, copy it, take it over to Sublime Text, and paste it in here, do some formatting, and let's take a look at this code here. It says we have a variable, my name, and we're setting that equal to a value of Bob, and then a variable, your name, which is going to be set equal to whatever the return value is from this prompt. And then what we're doing here is our if statement, or the Boolean expression inside of our if statement, is saying that if my name is not equal to, that's that inequality operator, your name. So if my name is not equal to your name, then we're going to show this alert that says we have different names. Okay, so I'll leave it up to you to go ahead and run that if you'd like. I know I'm going long here, so I'm going to try and speed things up a little bit. So I'm going to bounce back over to the browser. And now the strict equality operator, this one's a little bit tricky. But I think you'll be able to wrap your brains around it. But the strict equality operator is actually 3 equal signs. So now let me explain this here. But let's go ahead and copy this code here, and we'll get it over into Sublime Text. And I'm going to delete what we had before, paste it in here, do some formatting. Okay, now here's the thing. I've got two variables. Both of them have the same value. They both have a value of 7. But notice that one is a string and one is a number. Okay, so then after we initialize those two variables, then we've got an if statement here that checks to see if they're equal. Alright, so the equality operator will check to see if the values are the same, and that's it. So in this case, the value of both of these variables is 7. So this Boolean expression right here will evaluate to true, and we'll see this alert pop up. Okay, now if we're using the triple equal sign, or the strict equality operator, then in order for this Boolean expression to be true, then both of these variables not only have to have the same value, which is 7, but they must also be the same data type, which is not true, because this variable, the data type is a number. This variable, the data type is a string. So this Boolean expression would evaluate to false, and we would not see this alert here. Now, this can cause lots of bugs in your programming, in your programs, in certain situations. Sometimes you think you're working with a number and you're working with a string, but anyways, we'll come across this further on down the road, but that is the strict equality operator. And now we can go to our final category of operators, which are logical operators. So we use logical operators to combine Boolean expressions. Let me explain what that means. Let's take a look at the operators first here. I think there's only two of them here. So we've got a logical. This is called the AND operator, and then this is just two. We call these the pipe characters. If you look at your keyboard right above the Enter key, you'll see that when you hold Shift down, you'll get the pipe operator. So there's two pipes here for the OR operator. So what we can do is we can use these to see if a Boolean expression is true and another Boolean expression is true. We'll run some code. In the case of OR, we can check one Boolean expression or another Boolean expression to see if either of them are true. So let me go back down to our sample code here, and so here is the AND operator. Let's go ahead and copy this whole chunk of code, paste it over into Sublime Text, but I have to get rid of what we had there before. Whoops, now this is a long one, so it's forcing some scrolling, I think because of my notes here, my comments that is. Okay, so what we're doing here, I guess I'm throwing a little bit of a curveball at you here, but what we're doing here is we are prompting the user to enter a number. Okay, now this prompt, what it returns is a string, no matter what the user enters. If a user enters all numbers, the data type will still be a string. Okay, so this evaluates to whatever the user types in, and then we take that return value and we use it as a parameter into this function. Now we haven't talked about this, but this parseInt function, this function will look at the parameter that gets passed into it, and it will try to convert it to a number, actually to an integer. So if there's any decimals in it, it'll chop them off. So anyways, what's going on here, this is a little bit tricky, but this piece of code that I've highlighted is going to take whatever the user enters, and that's always data typed as a string, and it'll try and convert it into a number. And then so we can use X as a number. Now, so anyways, that'll be whatever they enter into the prompt here. And if they enter something other than a number, we'll get some gibberish that we don't need to talk about right now. So then I've got two variables, min and max. Min is set to 1 and max is set to a value of 10. And then what I've got here is, here's what we're after. Here's our AND operator. So what this is saying here, let's break this down. I've got an if statement, and it says if this is true and this is true, then the whole thing is considered true, and in that case this alert will run. So when you're using the AND operator, both of these Boolean expressions have to be true. This one here and this one here. So basically what we're trying to figure out here is if what the user entered into the prompt is between 1 and 10. So here we check to see if X is greater than or equal to our min, which is 1. So, and then on this side we're checking to see if X is less than or equal to our max, which is 10. So we can use these logic operators to combine Boolean expressions. So let's talk about the OR. So I'm going to go back over to the browser here, and let's copy this code sample and go back over to Sublime Text, and we'll delete what we had before. Paste this in here. Let's take a look at this here. Okay, so we've got three variables here. Temperature is equal to 75. Rain is true, so that means it's raining. And what to do, this variable is not initialized, so I've just declared it, but I haven't set it to anything here. So right here we're saying if the temperature is less than 60 degrees or raining is true, meaning that it's raining. So if rain evaluates to true, if either one of those is true, then we're gonna set what to do equal to stay home. Okay, so if either of these Boolean expressions is true, then the whole thing is considered true and this code would run. If both of these are not true, then the whole thing here, and when I say the whole thing, I guess I mean this whole thing is considered false. So if that's the case, then we would play golf. So okay, I'll leave that up to you guys to run this code if you'd like. Okay, back over in the browser, I've got one example left. I know this has been a long video, but a lot of stuff to cover here. So this is the last code chunk. Let's just take that and copy it and take a look at it. Go ahead and remove the previous example. Okay, so we've got three Boolean variables here. They're all either true or false. So Joe likes programming equals true. Betty likes programming, that's false, she doesn't like it. And Sally, she does like programming, that's true. Okay, so let's look at right here. We'll use the AND operator. So if Joe likes programming and Sally likes programming, if they both like programming, then we'll consider this whole entire expression to be true. And by the way, this is what we call a compound Boolean expression because there's two of them in here. And if they're both true, then the whole thing is true. And that's because we're using the AND. So if this is true and this is true, then the whole thing is considered true. And so the alert would show here. Now in the second if statement, we're using OR. So if Betty likes programming, or Sally likes programming, then the whole thing is considered true. So that's the difference between the AND and the OR operators. All right, I'm going to cut it off right there because it's been going too long.